Absolutely.
Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening to 105.3 out of New Orleans, Louisiana, to United Public Radio Network, also known as UFO, Paranormal Radio Network, or the easy way is just UPRN. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin, a Canadian clairvoyant medium, crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor, and you are listening to The Angel Rock. But if you want to watch the show live, we are live on our own TV channel on Roku. Now, I don't have the code for you, so the easiest way to find it, you're going, if you have the Roku app and signed in, to the channel store, and then you're going to type in capitals letters UFO space P as in Peter, like you're going to type paranormal, and we will come up under, I believe it's UFO space paranormal, and I believe it's like a / United Public. Oh, Kelly's here. Yes, you're the first one here, Kelly. Hey. So that's how you can find us. But better yet, if you want to join the conversation, like I just said hi to Kelly, and if you've been to the show before, you know I make you all part of the conversation. Zachman, haven't seen you in a while. So the best places to go, they're both the same name, UFO Public Radio. Sorry, that's our regular name. You want to go to UFO Paranormal Radio Network on YouTube or our Facebook page, and you can see the show there, and I can see your comments. Now, a little bit about my show. If you haven't been here before, I say cover aspects of the esoteric, the spirituality type stuff, paranormal, little bit of truth seeking thrown in there, but it always ends on a positive note. And the guests that I have on from all walks of life and from whatever they're doing professionally or extracurricularly, they're making a positive change for humanity. And today's guest is no different. Let me read his bio first. I got to get my glasses on because I'm blind without them. So his name is Michael DiBlasi. He's an intuitive reader, medium, counselor, and facilitator for over 30 years. And I've known him for a few years through our mutual wonderful friend, Lois T. Martin. He channels messages from the other side and has assisted others with connecting to their loved ones, guides, and angels. He is an ordained interfaith minister. My mouth does not want to work tonight. Reiki master teacher and spiritual life coach with a passion for helping others to connect to their inner wisdom. Welcome, Michael. Such an impressive bio.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And of course, I started when I was 5 years old, being that it was 30 years that I was into this.
I know. Well, Michael, okay, so like I said, Michael and I met on our mutual friend. She had a show called I've Got Your Number on Blog Talk Radio. We've been a guest numerous times on it. It is now, I believe, taking a break. I'll put it at that right now. So she's off the air. We miss her. So Lois, if you hear this, and Joanna, we miss you. Right, Michael?
Absolutely. And, and that's the whole thing. It's just like
Hi, Anna.
we get connected. We're getting
Let's
connected.
just say hi.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, Kelly.
Hey, Steva. I forgot to tell you before we went live, Michael, I involve everybody in the chat. So I try to, if they've got questions, comments, can you see the comments?
I see them popping up, so that's great.
Yeah, so if you see something and we're talking, let me know and I'll pull it up and I'll try and, if there's questions or comments. Go ahead. So you were saying, you've had this, noticed here about 5?
For us, just like with us, we have people that, we get connected to, and that's how we connect with the spirit realm. It's almost you're tuning in and then you're putting out your channel or your station, and then you pick up on all these other energies. And that's what I've sort of dedicated my life to. It's not only tuning in and getting the messages, but teaching people how to get their own messages. I think it's super important. But I'll tell you a little bit about how I do it now, and then we'll go back to how it started. I think that would be the best way to get to know me a little bit better. And for me,
go for it.
Right now I'm in it. I teach, and excuse me, I always say I don't like to say that I teach. I always say that I'm not here to teach you. I'm here to love you, and love will teach you. And when you really think about it, I love that. That really resonated with me because I think it's really powerful. Because we all have our own journey, and I'm not the expert of you, and you're not the expert of me, but I could assist you in connecting to your inner wisdom. So what I always say is most great teachings bring you back to yourself. Okay, so again, it's getting in touch with yourself, but a lot of people don't like to do the work. And I always, this is the question I ask when you're on your spiritual journey. I said, you're going through it, and it's great to get answers. It's great to find out things. It's exciting. I always remain curious. So for me, I'm looking at it as, am I involved in it, or am I committed to it? And the easiest way that I would say that the American breakfast is bacon and eggs. Okay, so if you
Right.
think about the American breakfast, the chicken was associated with it, but the pig was committed because he gave his life for it. So it's about
That's true. Oh, that's a
you know,
terrible way to say it, but it's
it's
true.
a terrible thing to say, but that's the easiest way that I could relay that to people.
Right.
For me, and I and everybody else has all been at different, sections of that, or different areas of that throughout their lives. And, I like to help everyone, and, but I like to see where people are at. And a lot of times, sometimes people just want to be, I just want to be involved. I don't want to be committed. I'd rather you come and do a reading. And if I'm not doing readings at the time, I'll refer them to people like you or Kimber, Angel Reader, good people that we've connected with, Lois T. Martin, all of these people that we've met through our careers. So I think it's important. It's important to ask yourself those questions. The other thing is taking responsibility. Everybody, when I first started getting my messages, they were like, "Oh, your life must be great. The spirit guides and the angels tell you everything to do." And I'm like, I wish it was that easy.
We're floating on clouds, and we poop rainbows and unicorns, and not even close.
I wish it was that easy. And for me, and this is what they've told me when I tuned in, they said, we could bring you to the threshold of the doorway of your answers, but it's up to you to walk through. Otherwise, there would be no purpose for your life. And it makes a lot of sense, okay? Because this is about you and the evolution of your soul, basically. And I figure that everything that we do is towards the evolution of our soul, whether it be in this lifetime, it's paying back karma from a last or previous life, or going forward into the future. Am I going to reincarnate? Am I going to come back and do this again? And it's all about where you fit in.
I'm
Throughout
taking
my career,
notes while you're talking about things that are lighting up for me. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's good. And the thing is, and that's what it is. It's about making people aware, okay, and about people empowering themselves. I even go for readings because a lot of times I'm hearing these things and I'm thinking, well, this sounds really great. When the stuff that's bad, I'm always like, yeah, that's probably going to happen. But when it's something good, you're thinking, am I thinking this, or am I wishing this? And then when you go to somebody else, and thank God I have really good friends that are intuitives, and, I'll just go to them and say, hey, I was looking for a little help with this, and we'll read for each other, or we'll refer them to another one of our friends that don't know anything, or that's not closely related to the situation. And I think it's important.
Okay, so I want to stop you there for a sec, so we don't get too far ahead on people here. I want to give a huge shout out. We got a ton of people here. We got Steve-O Hopkins. We've got Janie from Louisiana. I know Steve-O's from Canada. Please forgive me with your name, Golden Kozel, I believe. They say hello. Kellyanne's here. Be Free Books. Diane Da Silva, An Evolution of the Soul. Amen. But you know what? Let's back up a little bit, because you've said so many things. I'm like, oh my God, I could go.
I'm a New Yorker by heart.
Michael and I are like this off of the screen too. Like, what are we talking? We're just gonna have a quick talk on Friday. I think it was well over 2 hours, and it felt like 10 minutes.
I don't do anything quick.
Okay, so let's back this up a little bit for people, because what I believe, and I know from talking to you that you feel the same. We all are here, obviously, not by accident, and we chose to come here at this specific time. And I think this is an important time. But I want to point out to people that, because I think it sounds really elitist, not you, the global people that put this out here when we talk about our gifts and connecting to spirit and this and that. I believe everybody has those gifts. And for whatever reason, I always say, just like a professional athlete, musician, singer, leader, whatever it may be, right? Some of us hang on to those gifts, and they show up in childhood or even before that. We hang on to them all throughout our lives. But sometimes, could I, like, for example, I was a klutz always growing up. My mother, what did she used to call me? I think Lulabelle and all kinds of names. And she was always angry at me because I was all arms and legs. I'm tall and,
Yeah.
I'd fall. But I would never played sports and I wanted to. So when I was 13, I decided I want to play basketball. Now, I had to spend hours and hours and hours, but I became pretty good at it. I could have played in college. I chose nursing instead. So that's what I'm saying. I'm making the likening this with our spiritual gifts. We all have these, whether people want to call it a spiritual gift. How many of you out there have said, I'm just going to trust my gut?
Mhm.
That's your intuition, right? Personal space. That's your energy force field or your aura. It's just a matter of semantics and the name you call it. But let's go back to childhood for you. You have some really interesting stories you shared with
Yeah.
me, and I'll let you
And
be
it's
the guide or the chooser of what stories you want to share. But I think people will resonate with this. And then for those maybe that have forgotten these gifts that they probably had as a child, I've not met a kid that doesn't have them, especially preschooler type kids or younger. How can we help them too? Remember who we
absolutely.
are.
And as you can tell, I'm
Hi, Robin.
hyper. I'm very
Mhm.
hyper. So as I'm hyper, people are like, well, how do you meditate? How do you tune in? And it's great to sit there and meditate in your home. But the true sense of when you really connect is when you could be in the middle of chaos and then reach that center of peace. And it takes, as you said, it takes a lot of practice. For me, I would get a lot of things in dreams, or I would just have knowings.
Yeah, but did
As
that
it
start when you were little? Like, how did you know you were
started,
connecting with
well,
spirit when
when
you
I
were
was
little?
the earliest thing I can remember is, and one of my guides came back and said to me, "You heard me in kindergarten." And I said, "Really?" He goes, "What happened on the first day of kindergarten?" And when I think back, I remember my mother holding my hand, and I went into the class, and I thought it was me speaking to myself. And it said,
Okay.
"Don't look back, or you want to go with your mother." So I went there, and I'll never forget. It was these little animals, and we were creating a zoo, and just playing. And I knew not to look. So I started to go to look for her, and I thought it was me comforting myself, saying, "Don't worry, your mother will be back at 2 o'clock." So so I remember that clear as day. So he's like,
Mhm,
and so I'm looking at, I'm saying to him, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Why would you call your mother instead of mommy or mom in the first
mhm,
person? It was somebody else again coming in, and you were hearing a message from somebody outside of yourself." So that was the
mhm,
first real thing that I could check a box and say, "Hey, I really got something then." So what
mhm,
happens is, my background, I went to college, and most of my stuff was science based, animal science, it's biology and things like that. And
mhm.
for me, everything had to be proven. Okay. So what happens
Yeah.
is, I was always curious, and I always felt like there was something else, and I didn't know how to get there. So as I was going, we lived in Brooklyn, and then we moved to Long Island, and it was around puberty. And when we moved to Long Island, um, our basement was haunted, and I kept feeling, and I would hear things,
Mhm.
and it was funny because I was really close with one of my sisters. Like, they used to call us twins. She's probably on here, Sunday. How are you? And the thing is when we moved to that house, we separated. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm going through puberty. I'm a boy. She's a girl. Maybe that's what happens. But it was
Mhm.
weird. So it was sort of isolating us. So every time I went down the basement, I would say there were two spots that really felt, I would say in my mind, they were dirty. That's how I said it to myself. So I would go down. I want a pinball machine. I'll never forget. And my older brother, used to work out down the basement, and he would have the old weights where they're clanking, and he would be blasting Kiss music. And then sometimes I'd come home from school, and I thought he was there, and I heard it. I would open the door, it'd be pitch black, and I hear somebody laughing. And I'm like, ooh,
Oh
that's
my.
not good. So I'm like,
I've been
okay,
there.
right, right. So you're like, oh. So, and I'm trying to explain to my parents, and then my mother's like, stop doing that. You're scaring your sisters. It's probably your imagination, or you're hearing something. And, they only mean well, because they just want it to just go away. But what
Yeah,
happens is,
just make it go away.
and the more I pushed it away, the more it came back. And then what was happening was, so one day, and we all had our own chores, and this was my week to cook. So I'm cooking, and my sister comes home. She opens the basement door, and she slams it shut. And she says to me, do you ever hear the pinball machine on, the music on? She said, the basement is dirty. Just the same words. So I said, well,
Wow.
where is the basement dirty? She took me down to the two exact spots. It was this one little
How old
closet.
is your sister, the one that said this at
This
this
was,
time? Is she
I
a
was
teenager?
maybe 13 and she had to be like 11,
Okay, so
11, 12.
preteen
Yes,
or tween, yep.
yes.
Mhm.
So we were like, and then it was just bizarre because she took me to the two exact spots. The other spot was by this sink that we had in the laundry room that was attached to a dry well, which, they always say
Ooh.
that a lot of that stuff can be connected to the earth. So there were
Or
times,
underground water even, you could still probably
absolutely.
have some underground water, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, things would happen, and it just reminded me of another story. So what happens is I would see apparitions, I would see outlines, I would see shadows, and it would be weird. It would come across and it would go to touch me, and it was cool. And I remember it looking at me like he could see me, like they were in shock, So then one day I was looking through pictures and I was looking through pictures and I could almost pick up their thoughts. They didn't understand why I was getting so emotional looking at like a piece of paper, something non-human. And they were talking. So what happened was I would go to bed. I would usually be the last one to bed. I'm a night person. So
Me
when I go to
too.
bed,
I think most of us in this field for some reason are.
I start getting my energy right around
Right.
11 o'clock at night. So with this, as I'm doing this, I went to bed, everybody's sleeping, and I heard the basement door shut and I heard footsteps. So as I heard footsteps, I'm thinking, oh my God, somebody's in this. And we had dogs. And I was kind of wondering why the dogs didn't react. They were scared because they would whimper. So
Yeah,
what
because I
happens
always
is,
ask people, do you have little kids or animals? And if they say yes to either one, what are they doing? Always
yeah, they
ask
were
them.
whimpering. They were whimpering. They were crying. So I was like, that's
Mhm.
kind of weird. So it was on different levels. So it went from the kitchen, and then that went from like linoleum floor or tile floor to the rug. And then there was a foyer between all of our bedrooms. And I
Mhm.
saw the shadow. It went up to my parents' bedroom, but didn't go past the threshold. It went back to my two sisters' bedroom, and then it floated right into my room. And it was like at the foot of my bed. And it was looking at me like, oh, because so I started to pray and I got nervous. And all of a sudden I see it reach out for me and it touched my leg and the hairs on my leg stood up. So I screamed and everybody gets up. And my phone's like, no, it was a bad dream. Da, 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 da,
Of
da.
course. Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Mhm.
So then it would happen every night. And then there was one, then there was two, and then there was three of them. And they were chanting something. It sounded Native American. And
Mhm.
so I'm thinking, oh my God, maybe I am going crazy. I'm like, do crazy people know they're crazy? I'm thinking to myself,
Yeah.
my parents,
You
I'm
know
just
what? I
thinking,
always say to people as a nurse, though, right? If you ask yourself if you're crazy, that's
yes.
probably a pretty good. You're pretty lucid. You know what's going
I
on.
needed you then. I needed you, Lorilei, then. So I was
Yeah.
there going, okay, and I can't tell anyone. So because my father already thinks that I'm dreaming. So what happens is it would happen, and they would stand at the foot of my bed, and they would just look at me, and they couldn't believe that I could see them, and they would talk to each other, but they would chant something. So
Mhm.
one time a bigger one came in and it frightened me. And I never forget, I started praying to God and this green light came and it circled me and it circled in front of me and I felt pulled back and I felt like I was being encased in clouds and I saw Mother Mary. It felt like she
Aw.
was pulling me back. So like to
Mhm.
protect me. So this is going on, right? And now I'm going from my teens, now going to go to college. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Things are changing. So with this, me and my sister were watching TV one night. And she's like, oh, I'm not going to be the last one to go to bed. I said, why? She goes, because your friends from the basement are going to come visit you. I said, what? I
Oh,
said,
did
you
you
see
just
them?
about faint when your
So I'm
sister
like,
said that
what?
to you?
Yeah. So I was like, what? So she goes, how come they go in your room? They go up to mommy's and dad's. They don't come in. They go to ours. And she goes, I pray and they go away and they go right into your room. So she says, there's three of them. There's two guys and a girl, and they sing a funny song. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, this is crazy. How could she get
Then you
this
know
the
you're
number?
not crazy because your
Yeah. So I'm
sister's
like, thank you.
experiencing it.
Right. So this went on for a while, and I would see this man, and he appeared one day, and I thought I was getting electrocuted because I felt this energy. And
Oh,
I looked
wow.
because And I looked over and he was appearing and he looked, God forbid, like an undertaker. He had a very white face and a dark mustache, but he kept looking at me like, don't you know who I am? Like he felt like he was trying to say he was related to me. I'm like, I don't know who you are. You need to go away. So he went away. So things were going on. And then I started to dream. And so I'm in 10th grade maybe. So I'm dreaming. And in the dream, I put my head down and I hear a little boy crying down the basement. And in our real basement, in real life, we had 2 rooms. It was the finished side, and then it was the unfinished side, which was the laundry room. So the little boy's crying. I go downstairs in the dream, and it's all earth. It's all like dirt. The walls are dirt, everything. And there was 3 rooms, and in the middle room was this little Native American boy on this pile of, it looked like rubble, and he was shaking something, saying, give me back. I thought he was saying, give me back my penny. And I'm like, I don't have your penny.
I remember
So
you telling me this story. This is a cool story, guys.
So with this, I go back in the dream and I'm doing my homework in the dream and he's crying again. So I get scared and I run outside. And when I run outside, I mean, I lived in suburbia. I saw tumbleweed and then I saw a cornfield. And then I went out my front gate and it was an old gate. And I went to the street and I said, well, let me look at the street sign. I lived on Vermont Street and it said Breslau. I'm like, I don't know what that means. And then it changed. It said Breslow. And then I woke up. So one of my friends, Brian, his mom was going to a dream analysis class. And back then, we didn't have computers or cell phones,
That's right.
I wrote everything out and I said, could you ask the teacher what this dream means? So he comes back and the teacher told the mother that wasn't a dream. It was a spirit guide trying to get a message to you. And if you want to know about it, call her. So of course, I'm not going to call in the kitchen where the kitchen phone is. I go hiding in my father's and mother's bedroom so I could call so nobody thinks I'm a nut. So I go and I start talking.
You called like the dream analysis person.
Yeah, the teacher.
I thought you were meaning like when you said call her, I'm thinking, how's he going to call his spirit guide? I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
No, but he gave me the phone number for her and say,
okay.
She just call me.
But you're hiding because your family, or the adults in the home. Yeah.
Yes, I'm crazy about a lot of other things, but that's not one of them. So with this, in between those rooms, we had French doors. So I'm there, and the woman says to me, my spirit guide is saying that, were you digging in your yard? And I said, no. And she said, my spirit guide is saying you were. So I said, oh my God, I was digging in the garden. So she goes, well, did you take anything? And I said, no. And she says, they're saying that you took something. With this, my sister runs into the room. She's like, who the hell are you speaking to on the phone? She goes, the doors down the basement are banging. So I'm like, I'm like, you need to help me. So she says, whatever you took. And I said, you know what I did? I was digging in the garden and I found it was like an old button and it had like rhinestones in it. And back then you think, well, maybe it's diamonds. Let me keep it. So maybe it's an antique. Maybe this is where I'm going to be rich. So with this, she said, whatever you do, go find it and put it back. I said, well, I don't know exactly where I put it. She says, when you get it, go to where your heart brings you. Again, the heart, right? So I'm like, wow. With this, I find it and it's in a mason jar. And that's what the little boy was shaking in the dream. But it gets even better than that. And I put it away. I'm in social studies. And he said, does anybody know what Lindenhurst was called before it was called Lindenhurst? And I didn't know. I was from Brooklyn. He writes on the board, Breslau, Breslau. And that was the name of it. It was a little Germany. And it was made little. So back then we didn't have home computers. I went to the library and I looked it up. And when I looked where my house was, when it was Breslau, it said cornfields and Indian burial ground. So I'm like, that's it. I do not need anything else. That was my proof. And so I'm telling my mother this. We're in the kitchen. I said, I don't care what you say. I know it sounds crazy, but I have my proof. You don't want to believe it? I believe it. With this, the water goes on full blast in the kitchen. Like it just starts coming out. Right? So my mother looks at me. She goes, go shut off that water. I said, no, you shut it. She goes, I'm scared. She goes, call your father. And, so it was really kind of funny because, and the funniest part about this, my mom was very intuitive growing up. She just thought it was an intuition, or she'd say to me, how come it's always something bad? And I said, well, because it's urgent. And the fact that they've been trying to warn you and you've been sort of, brushing it off, now it's urgent and you have to do something or something bad is going to happen. So,
Mhm.
so then I said, you have to listen to that. When you get those feelings, you have to act on them. And that's the message for everyone. When you get those feelings, they're for a reason. They're there to help you. They're there to protect you. And the other thing is, and the message that they're telling me right now to say is, if you don't ask, we can't help you. We can't do it for you, but you need to ask.
Yeah, you have to ask, but there's something I want to point out, really, a few things here. First of all, I know many people as well as myself. Now, what I find for myself, and everybody's experience is individual. What happens to me if I don't heed the advice? Got one of my guides, I call the naggy spirit guide, very lovingly, of course, but they just
Yeah,
keep repeating it over and over and over and over. And then they'll do it again. And then they'll come up in a dream. They'll just keep repeating, because it's important. I need to follow what they're saying. Now, is anything, lightning bolt going to come down and strike me down from heaven? Well, it hasn't yet, I'll say. But what I'll usually find out is that if I don't heed it, I've learned. I pay attention now, but in the beginning, you learn that, oh, yeah, this is why I was supposed to do that, because look at what's happened. So we're not trying to scare people that if you're hearing your guides or connecting and you don't
correct.
listen, like nothing
Something bad is going to happen. It's
horrifically
not.
awful is going to happen, but they're here to guide us. They're here to see us succeed, for the reason why we came down to this planet in the first place. Second of all, I think it's so important, and I'm hoping Michael will get into this too, is that when you are awakening, however that may happen, you may have spirits appearing to you. And, every single person I have talked to that has these type of gifts, I never told my family, because my mother makes fun of people that do what we do. And so it would never have been accepted, except that it was on my dad's side. My grandmother knew, when she was good French Canadian Catholic family, no birth control, 17 kids. Apparently, the woman, God love her, was pregnant every year for 25 years. Don't ask me how.
I
But
guess
she
she didn't
knew.
have TV.
What's that?
She didn't have TV and a
That's
television.
true. But 17 kids in this little tiny
Wow,
house,
God
it's
bless
still
her.
standing. She knew the minute that her third eldest son had died. My dad was sort of to the middle end, like he was in those tween years, and he's told me that story.
Yeah.
So the important thing is, though, when you're awakening, I think, is to find mentors to work with who have experience. People like Michael, I've had experience. I always tell people, when they choose to work with me, I highly encourage you to seek other people that you resonate with, because you know what? It's just from my perspective and my experience. Michael's perspective and experiences are different. There's a million different people I could tell you that do this type of work, but that's why I feel it's a more holistic, well-rounded education, if you will. And it never stops. I think we are always learning. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Michael. So what did you do with this once
Well,
you realized it was
okay.
there?
Well, this was good too. And I just saw Ginger, Anthony, and Damon. Thank you for being on here. I saw your
We've
message
got
come up.
so many people here, guys. So we're
Yeah.
just chatting a bit. So if
Yeah.
you've got questions, comments, we're trying to see these here for you.
Yeah, hiding in the spiritual closet. I see it again. It took me to the late 40s to tell your mom.
Mhm.
And the thing is, so automatically there's fear around it, because I was raised Catholic, and
Me too.
Catholicism is my foundation. So I use that. I don't believe everything that the Catholic Church has to offer. I take what I resonate with, and then that's where spirituality brought me further. I've never been closer to Jesus and ascended masters since I've done, connected spiritually. But the thing is, and this is what I tell everyone. So I had that fear going in there, and I'm glad that you sort of address the fact that just because you're not listening, something terrible is not going to happen. But they are there to warn you or to guide you to make your life a little bit easier, when you're open.
You said something important, Michael, and I cut in there, and I apologize, but you had said, if we don't ask, they can't answer
Yes.
us.
Yeah.
Right?
And again, they're there to assist us, not do it for us. And it goes back to, again, they're not gonna do all these things for you, or it's not gonna be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna follow everything they say, or everything that the medium says, or everything that the psychic said,
No,
and my
that's
life
not
is
what
going to
we're
be
saying.
perfect. That's not how it works, because there would be no purpose in your life, and your life is an unfolding. And I always look at it as, they say like it's a layer of onion skin. And just when you think that you've learned something, it may come up or show up in a different area of your life. So what happens is normally when you're triggered by something, there's usually a deeper root to that, which has to do with some kind of fear, because there's two things. It's either fear or love. That's what we act out of. Okay. And the thing is, anger, comes from fear of losing control, fear of not being in control. And when you're in that loving state, everything seems to jive. But the thing, before I forget about, I want to just touch on the fact about people having protection and asking for protection. And protection for me may be different than it is for Lorilei, and may be different for you. Protection is something that you do to protect yourself, that you connect with. And the thing is, for me, I was raised in the Catholic religion. Sometimes it was rosaries. It's Saint Benedict's medals. It could be some crystals and stones.
I'll share when you're finished. I'll share what I do, because too.
And I cover myself in lights. I've had experiences, and I've had experiences with Jesus when he came to me, and I really thought I was losing it. And
I know quite a few people, though, that have had these wonderful experiences with Jesus.
Yeah. And the thing is, so I was questioning all this. And the reason that made me sort of step out and say, you know what? I really want to pursue this. And I remember asking, I went to a psychic, and she told me everything was great, but I had a curse on me. And for $200, she was going to rub me with an egg or a coconut and take it away. I said, well, I don't know. I don't know. I said, first of all, I've been living with this one. I didn't even know about it. And I said, and I didn't even have the $200 to give her. And I said, so I remember stepping out of her place. And I remember looking up at the sky. I said, God, if this is real, please help me to know, so that I can not only help myself, but to help other people. Because the fact is, people like that are taking advantage of people's fears and actually causing them more harm than good. So with this, I started taking psychic development classes. Unfortunately, I was attracted, and I actually had teachers. They were from Uruguay, and they were doing black magic in the background. Mm-hmm. So what happens is, I thank God for my faith and my connection with my guides. And they taught us techniques that I use, and that were very valid. So you get that trust, like, oh my God, this is connecting me. And they would say to me, God bless you, Michael. And when they would say it, I would feel dirty. And I'm thinking, they said, I never seen anyone walk this earth that has so much light. And the way they would do it, it would go through me and feel bad. It would feel dirty, like you want to take a shower. And I'm thinking, that's really weird. So when I started to develop my guides, they would give me messages. And the one was coming through, and he kept talking about Halloween. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this Halloween's going to come, and it's going to be so great, and it's going to give me all my answers. And he's like, no, you're not getting it. Halloween is when people speak and they don't mean what they say. And because I kept getting pictures, when I would look at them, I would close my eyes when I would go to meditate, and I would see them like killing a chicken or a pigeon or something. And I saw them all dressed in like this garb that I'm not used to seeing them. And I'm thinking, why am I thinking? And then it all came out, because it all came out in the fact of, and this is my true belief, just like when you meet somebody in the physical realm, they're going to always put their best foot forward. But at some point, you're going to make that discernment. Is this really who they are, or are they trying to trick me? And darkness and negativity cannot stay in the light too long. It just can't. So they'll reveal themselves.
I want to stop you there for a sec, because you've said some important things. One of the things, about protection. I said this to Michael. I've said it to many of you on here. I know many people on here are probably listening. I've sent you these videos. I don't have a big YouTube channel. I'm not trying to promote my YouTube channel. But I have 2 videos on there I share a lot. And one is called How to Create a Love Shield. Especially if you feel you're empathic. We hear many people saying it's a curse. I can't go into a public place. I look at it as a superpower, because once you learn how to work with it and manage it, when people are lying to you. You're not always going to be 100% correct either. By the time if somebody tells you that they are 100% everything they're telling you, this is it, I always say run, because we're all human beings. Okay, we make mistakes. But with the Love Shield, I tell everybody it takes longer to watch than it does to do. And the reason why is I try and walk you through so you can co-create as I'm showing you how to do it. And again, this is for people that it resonates with. It may not. And that's okay too. But the reason why I chose love is one of the most powerful, incredible emotions I feel that we have as human beings. And I don't want to come from a place of fear. When you hear people shielding themselves, like, or energetic protection is a better word, you're coming from a place of love, right? And I walk you through, everybody knows what the emotion of love is, regardless of whether, how you know what you know. And then I walk you through something that you can create that will work for you. So when you close the video and you try and remember what you watched and you go, what was step 5 again? What did she say? You'll know. The other one is how to ground and grid. I think it's so important as human beings, and we are not taught this. Michael said something earlier that was so powerful too. I come from a science background. I have a Bachelor of Science in nursing, right? And so I questioned everything too. And I always wanted to bring it back to science, especially in the beginning. And when you know like attracts like energy on this planet. And so we also know we're in kind of a duality on this earth. So you're going to have hot and cold, light and dark, whatever, right? So it's not just these beautiful light beings that can see you, or ascended masters or what have you, right? There is dark energies out there that can also see you. So that's why it's important to get a handle on this. I know, Mike, I hear Michael's thoughts are going a mile a minute. I can literally hear you. So jump in there, Michael.
Well, again, and and that is perfect because when I told you
I
that time I saw
apologize.
you. No, this is awesome because
No,
this is how it should
somebody's saying yous are breaking up, guys. I apologize if
oh,
it does. I'm close. I have a Wi-Fi extender. I keep moving it up. If I have to, I'll have to go kick my partner Dell out from downstairs, but even across from the router, and we're getting snow. I think that's probably why. But go ahead, Michael.
So the other thing is when I told you that I saw Jesus, actually I was going to work and I was late and I was running through, I was doing a shortcut, and through my peripheral vision, I saw this man walking towards me. And he was shorter than I expected, darker than I expected, and his face was angular, and he had a robe and he was walking. And he stops and he looks at me. He says, "Do you not know who I am?" And I said, "Oh my God, it's Jesus." And when I said that, he smiled and this light came over me. So he turns around and he says to me, "When people come to hear you speak," I'm like, "Who's going to hear me speak? My parents think I'm crazy." He said, "Listen to the message." He said, "When people come to hear you speak, tell them that I don't ask them to follow me. I ask them to follow the light, because the light is the truth. And we all have our own light that burns for the eternal light that we all burn for." And then he disappeared. 3 weeks later, I'm speaking in over 300 people at a Borders book telling that exact story. And what happens was, as I built up to that, I would go with other spiritual groups and we would go pray for people. But negative stuff started coming to me. So there was a Daniel Ackner. He's a well-known psychic on Long Island. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and so he says, I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He says, "What?" I said, "If we're doing such good work, how come negative things are coming? Is this bad?" So, like people are saying, he said, "Where the light is the brightest, the darkest shadows are cast." And I'll never, I mean, I could hear him saying it. And he goes, "What better win for negativity than to get a light that is so bright as yours?" And he said, "There are going to be tests for you, and you have to know how to protect yourself." And again, I was already learning about protection. And the protection, for me, I protect myself with lights. And you could do it in a bubble of light. You can do it in I do it in pyramids because my mind goes crazy. I'm like, did I cover myself fully? So I know with the pyramid, it's a point at the top, walls on each side, and a floor on the bottom. And then I breathe in the light. So I start off with the golden light. And the golden light, I was told, is protection. Okay, it's protection.
Thank you for sharing this. This is important, and I'll tell you why afterwards. But thank you for sharing this particular
You're
type of
welcome.
light.
And then the next light is a white light. And then you picture it going everywhere that the golden light has gone. And that's the white light of healing, love and healing. And what that does is when we're sick, we're out of balance. It makes diseases at ease. It puts us back into balance. Just like with Reiki and all the other, medicines, not traditional medicine. It goes about balance. So you do that. And then you picture breathing it in. Then, so those come from the top, right? Then you picture from the center of the earth, you picture a beautiful ball of violet energy coming under your feet from the center of the earth, and you feel it go around you and go everywhere that the other pyramids were. So you almost form like a Jewish star or a Merkaba almost. And the violet light is transmutation and transformation. Any patterns that you set up for yourself, either physically, spiritually, or emotionally, that are no longer working for you, will be dissolved so that you can set up patterns that will help you on your journey. And it lightens your load. I've done that. It's been amazing just doing that. And I let Lorilei know a story of when actually I was going around with churches and stuff and then praying for people. And what happened is I would be like, oh, I'm so protected. I'm in the light and da 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 da. And that same basement, what was happening, I remember going downstairs to go get something. And in the old basements, they had the fluorescent light. So you had to click the light on it. It took a few seconds to go on.
Yeah.
So I look across and it looked like what I would call the devil. I saw horns, like it looked like goat horns almost. And it said, who do you think you are trying to pray over people like a little white priest? He goes, I'm coming to kill you. And I was like, so first I'm thinking, am I seeing what I'm seeing? So I said, well, you can't touch me. I come in God's light of love and protection. And I'm putting that. And he goes, I really hope you believe that because I'm coming to kill you. And he starts to fly. I mean, he was coming at me and I could feel this fear. And when I felt the fear, the lights dropped. And then I said, but wait a minute. I really believe in this. I live this. And the lights got stronger and brighter than I've ever seen. And as soon as it hit, the thing went up, like it disappeared. And I heard this voice say, where there is light, there is no longer darkness. And you, my child, are a light. And wherever you walk, there will no longer be darkness. From that point on, I felt protected. And I'm saying this not because I'm special. Everyone, that's for everyone. You're all lights. And wherever you walk, there will no longer be darkness. You got to remember that, because what I believe negativity or that fear, what it does, it tries to isolate us, make us feel alone and that we have no hope.
And it feeds it. It feeds the negativity. Like, I have a son with severe autism, as many of you know if you followed the show. Now, I was able to teach that love shield to my son, and he is very intelligent, but he's very much like having a precocious 5 to 7-year-old. Really, he is. Now, he still remembers every night. This was back in our previous home, and he always says, I put the bubble up, Mom. I put the bubble up. So for him, working with him with appropriate language, he's created a bubble. And he knows how powerful that bubble is, that he can put it around himself. He can put it around his family. He can put it around his house. You can put that bubble anywhere. Now, that's just a proverbial bubble. You can create whatever you want. Another one of my family members never shared with me till years later. I taught them this as a child. For them, they chose angel wings. So for them, they wrap themselves in energetic embrace, if you will, like angel wings.
I like
so
that.
The thing is, and I think Spirit gave me this, and it's what we perceive becomes what we believe, and it becomes our reality. So when you were talking about the curse, for example, I had people when I was looking for answers years ago. For those of you new to the show, how I actually reawakened to my gifts was through, I always say I wouldn't wish our experience that we went through paranormally on a blade of grass. Not that I'm any better than a blade of grass, but my point is that would I be what I'm doing today, or where I am now and what I'm doing today? No. But it was a pretty scary thing. My partner, I'll mention him, give his show a plug. He is on, actually after me, I have a second show on Thursday nights with my co-host David Hansel, new show called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed, talking about many things Michael and I are talking about tonight, actually. So Del, his name is, and his is called The Delicious Recipe, not a cooking show. Talks about many of these things, truth seeking and things like that. He was thrown 15 feet across the kitchen. And we were, he didn't even tell me for 2 days, because both of him and I are Nighthawks. He got up in the middle of the night to make a sandwich. I guess he said he was bending down in front of the fridge in our old house. And all of a sudden he goes flying kitty corner into the countertops over in the kitchen. Well, he's still skeptic to this day. He's got to debunk it 6 ways to Sunday. So he's out there with his voltmeter checking all the wires. And he finally had to admit, with everything else that was going on, and we have many pictures. I'm actually writing a book about this, but we are on the Travel Channel's show Paranormal Survivor, season 4, episode 9, and it's called Demonic Hauntings. And speaking of dreams, Michael, I was raised Roman Catholic. I know you know this. I shared some of this, but for our newer people that are here, Mine started with a dream 16 years ago that happened like it was 10 minutes ago. And there was a tree in my front yard at the old house. And there was a man in my front tree. And basically, he told me he was a demon, told me his name, told me how to spell it, and told me his animal form. And of course, he tried to get me to follow him. And in the dream, I told Michael what I said, but I can't say it on the air here. But believe me, in no uncertain terms was I following him. Anyways, all heck did break loose. And about 5-6 years later, when I was helping people with their own paranormal stuff, there I find the name I'd been given, the exact spelling. I'd been, like I said, raised Roman Catholic, gone to Roman Catholic school, forced to go to church every Sunday. I'd never heard this name before. So it's not like I could have made it up. And then to see it on paper in front of me. The whole point is, and I think what I'd love to talk about, Michael, is many of the things you've shared here, and I'm so glad you have. It's to empower people to understand that we are not helpless. Like you're talking about this light within us. Like you said, this isn't just because I'm so special. This is for everyone. Go ahead, because literally, I swear to God, I can hear Michael's thoughts tonight just going like super fast.
But you're so on point, and that's the thing, you know. I'm not special, you know. I'm not more special than you. You're not more special than me. We all came here. You know what I look at each of us as a piece of God, and together we're more of God's love and light. And the way, and when we gather, and it says it in the Bible, when we gather, when 2 or 3 gather, you know, I will be there. And it's because it amplifies that. And remember, wherever there is light, there is no longer darkness. Darkness cannot sustain anything in the light. And I saw my sister Sunday actually put up that she remembers that. Yep, you know, and the thing is that, you know, is it easy? It could be, but it's actually, you know, you have to walk through your fear, and it's about having courage. And courage is not, you know, the lack of fear. It's having that fear and walking through it anyway. And the why I did it was not only for me, but to help other people. And when you're coming from a service sense, that's what God wants. We're all here to serve each other and serve heaven, you know, but we're here to serve each other. If we're a piece of heaven, each of us, or a piece of God, you know, we forget that sometimes when we're so busy arguing or trying to be right. We forget that, you know, we're one, and that light, and it's all about picturing what works for you. Some people like I have those lights. Another thing, it was so funny. I would get a lot of these things from spirit, but people are like, well, why do you go to classes? I go to classes because by no means do I think my way is the only way. And I said, well, what happens if somebody comes to me and my way is not working? I want to have an alternative for them. Like, well, maybe try this, you know, or this is what I tried and it worked for me. So that, you know, it's not like, you know, my way or the highway. It's, you know, it's like, let's try what works for you. And the thing is, when you do that, another light that I want to share with you is a pink light. Picture yourself in a pink angelic light. The pink light filters out negativity and allows good things to come through. Because a lot of times too, as people, what they picture is when they put that shield up, they're blocking everything out. So when you put that pink light, it sort of allows the good stuff to come through and filter out the bad stuff. And I've worked with that. You know, and it's
sometimes
funny,
I'll use a rainbow. Sometimes I'll use a rainbow, and if I'm going in, because that way I leave it up to whatever the situation is, it's covered.
Absolutely.
The other thing I will do.
So true. Yes,
well,
I like that.
I was going to add. Yeah, because you know what, I figure I'm covered, and whatever is necessary is there. The other thing, and I've had people sometimes give me a hard time about this, because you never know with mirrors and blah, blah, blah. But what I will do, if I know I'm going to be going into a situation, and we've all been there where we know we might be going into a really toxic situation. Maybe sometimes it's family, sometimes it's something you can't avoid, could be work. So what I will do is, with this love shield, like we've got a rainbow, right, covering me, but on the outside, I put a mirror 360 degrees around me. And with the intention that if something is sent that isn't meant for my highest good or in love, that it just bounces right off and it's returned to sender. But when it's returned to sender, there is no malice, there is no anger, there is no hatred, but I do send them love. because people that do things like that hurt people. They do. And so I feel they probably need love. If they're going to be sending stuff like,
Absolutely.
same as a lot of the sayings we have. I think we talked about this on Friday night a little bit, Michael. I'm positive it was you. Like, when people say stab you in the back or watch your back, or I can feel it in my gut. A lot of these sayings that we have, and I can only speak for English because that's my main language. There is a spiritual, energetic, equal thing that equates to it, I believe.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And the thing is, and you're so right, because and you also have to be careful about what you're saying, because our thoughts and our words are very strong, and
And emotions.
it brings things into the physical realm. Just like, it was funny because I lived in
Hi,
DC for a
George.
while, and when I was when I was going around, they would have different art exhibits in the street, and I would be like a nut. I'd be sitting there just staring at it, and I would be so absorbed. And one day I was walking, and as right before I got up, Spirit said to me, the reason that you feel so connected with it, because you're connecting with a piece of that artist's soul, because they took something from the esoteric realm, from the soul realm, and they brought it into the physical realm. So when you connect with a piece of art, a piece of music, even energy of another person, you're connecting with their soul, and you vibrate in the same energy, or it feels familiar, or it feels good. So again, another thing I use stones. Sometimes I'll use stones. I have they're hearts. Okay. I also have rose quartz hearts. When I was a manager, I would bring a rose quartz heart and I would keep it in my pocket. I'm there to do a job, but I always remember that I have people's lives in my hands. And because I'm their boss, I'm the supervisor, what I say could affect their lives. And I always try to keep that and remember, and it grounds me. And if things got tense, I would always stick my hand in my pocket. And once I felt that stone, I'd be like, okay, Michael, let's get off that track, and let's, be reminded, why we're really here. This is the bigger picture.
Okay, I get it. I agree with you. And my gosh, I hope people are resonating with this. It sounds like the comments, but I wanted to stop because Kellyanne, we see your question, but I want to share one thing. And I remembered it when I was listening, and you were talking about the lady with the curse, and Zach had a really good comment. He said that $200, they better have given you the lottery number, winning lottery numbers. Zach's got everybody in here has a great sense of humor, but he's usually comes up with these one-liners. But I wanted to share something that happened. I think it was after I talked to you on Friday night. Most of us that have groups, I have 2 groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for many of the ghostier type things, and then the Angel Rocker Tribe for many things Michael and I are also talking about tonight. And I've made a point of posting and trying to tell people, because your phone will blow up if you belong to a bunch of groups and the chats are there, right? Like, to tell them how to mute the notifications. We want you here, so please don't leave. I mean, if you're going to leave, you're going to leave, but I don't want you to leave because your phone's blowing up from notifications. But I also have some rules for the groups. And one of them is, especially in the paranormal group, is, they say at a party, 3 topics you never talk about, right? Money, religion, and politics. And somebody posted an article about this woman that practiced witchcraft, it was called, or whatever it was. And now she'd become a devout, born-again Christian. Nothing wrong with that. But you know what? There's people from all walks of life in the group and all different practices and beliefs. So I mentioned that, and I said, we just try not to go there with this. And she got very angry. There's a reason why I'm sharing this. She got very angry and said, well, what kind of paranormal group is this? It's definitely not one. And she said, I'm leaving. Okay, fine. And then I was sitting in the kitchen about a half hour later, and my German Shepherd started going crazy, sniffing all around the ground. Like, I could hear Del going, what is wrong with you? And all of a sudden behind my ear, I hear like this giant snap behind my ear. And I went, you gotta be kidding me. And so I just said out loud, not my first rodeo, dealt with the energy. Now, do I think she sent me something on purpose? No, I just think she was very angry. And probably, maybe God knows what was going through her mind, because everything is energy, remember, right? Energy collectively can create things. It really can.
Absolutely.
So by negating it with the light, like you're talking about with love and what have you, it was over and done with in about 20 minutes. But had I bought into that and thought it was something really negative and started to come from a fearful place, and oh my God, like maybe it's a curse, and do you see where I'm going with this? The collective energy. And I'm not saying these things don't exist. Pardon?
You bring it more in, then it's sort of like you're feeding
Yes.
that and you're bringing more, and that gives it growing. And I think that also helps answer Kellyanne's question, why don't they come back, is because once you show that you're empowered and you stand in your light, they can't harm you, and they know that because the negativity of why don't they
I think
keep
she's
coming back.
asking why they came to see you but never came back. Maybe the negative. I don't know if she was talking about the negative. Did I misunderstand, or is that maybe that's what you were saying? Because that was a question a while back, I think, when you were talking, but I don't know if it was about
Yes.
your guides or she was
Yes.
talking about, I'm not sure. So Kellyanne, if you're still there, can you just clarify for us? How did you take it, Michael?
I took it as like, but why they never come back? And I look at it as they don't come back, like, once they're banished, they don't come back because you're standing in that light. And when you, she said yes, when you resonate in that light, and that's again talking about resonating at a higher vibration. Negativity or those lower vibrations cannot be around that.
Like
and
attracts like energy.
Yep, thank you.
The other thing that I'm hearing from our guides,
yep.
Michael, because people that are new at this basically, and I'm not trying to make it sound bad, maybe you'll say it better than I can, but it's not something that we just do once, like with energy practice or connecting. Like, it becomes kind of a lifestyle and part of who you are, and you may grow and evolve. There may be people that'll say, I don't like you anymore because you're not quite the same person as you used to be. You know what? And I'm being very blunt here. People usually don't say it that way, but have you got anything to add on that, Michael? Because a lot of people I've met, like, that are new to this, think they only got to do it once.
Yeah, no. And the other thing, I see Shannon's question, green light, usually that means healing. Usually for me, green light, it also could be a loving energy, a heart energy. So green light is also good. Also, Archangel Raphael comes through on a green light too. And
I know why Shannon's choosing green, because Shannon, you've already said it in public. No, she's a nurse. That's why. Archangel Raphael makes a lot of sense, right? Why you'd be working
Raphael,
with him.
Absolutely. But again, it's not a one and done. Like I said, just like, when we go through our lives, like, I believe that there's lessons that we have, and we have to make sure that we learn them. And it may not be presented to you in the same exact way. It may be presented in another area of your life to see if you really got that message. These messages,
go ahead. Sorry.
Show up.
I got a delay here, guys. You guys know if you've been to my show before, so I apologize. Continue, yes. Michael.
Yeah, no, like, my thing is if, if it keeps showing up, that means you're really not getting the message or the gift in it. I believe that everything happens to us for a reason. It happens for us, not to us. And the thing is,
okay, so Kellyanne, sorry, I was just going to add this. That's sorry, it keeps glaring at me here. Kellyanne says, no, it's when I guess they pass away, they come to visit, but they never come back again. I think she's referring possibly to loved ones.
To loved ones? Well, a lot of times too is they just want to make that connection and say, no, I'm okay, because just like we have things to do on this realm, they have things to do in that realm. And the thing is, they're just checking in to say, hey, I'm okay, because you might be worrying about them, or you may be thinking about them. And also to show that love never dies. It just changes form. It's like we're all energy, and it's been proven scientifically. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just changes form,
Can I add one thing too, Michael? What I want to add is, a lot of times our loved ones, and I don't want to make it sound that it's any fault of anyone's, because it's not, because grief is a normal emotion that we go through. There is no timetable as human beings, but it naturally lowers our energetic vibration. And our loved ones, especially as they cross over and go to the other side, they're at a very high vibration. So sometimes it's hard to make that connection. So you may get them once just letting you know, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm happy, I'm at peace. But a lot of times they do visit us in our sleep as well. That's the easiest way. If they can make that connection, they'll leave a sign. So always say to people, pay attention to everything around you. If you hear a song that comes on when you're thinking of your loved one and it's got words that, like, holy crap, they could have just said that to me, guess what they did? You see numbers around you, you see things. So if they can't actually visit, because maybe of where somebody is at an emotional state, not always, but sometimes they leave you signs, they leave you messages from the other side. Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but it's so true. And the fact of it is that, and this is the other thing that I noticed. when high vibrational spirits come through, there is no emotion. You feel love, but you become that love. It's not like an emotion. I believe emotions sort of are like the static electricity within the connection. And that's the way I look at it, is that when you have heavy emotions, that's why a lot of times when people are grieving and deep in grieving, they won't be able to reach their loved ones, is because those emotions are creating that static where even if they're coming to you, you won't be able to get a clear message from them because you're in that energy. A lot of times too with dreaming, I believe in a dream state, one, psychologically we tell ourselves, well, this is okay, it's only a dream. Two is, in a dream state, our vibration lifts and they lower theirs and we meet on that plane. It's just like, and this is what I tell people, because people are like, oh, do you need a candle, or do you need a crystal ball or whatever? I said, those are focal tools. And I said, I always tell people, look, when you're reading a book, you ever read a book and then you get all of a sudden something startles you in the room and then you realize that you sort of zoned out, and you didn't remember what you read, because you're focusing so intently on those words that you're having a shift of consciousness. That's exactly how we as mediums and psychics go into that realm. I think that's the easiest way to tell a layman who's never done it, because we've all been there. Or you're driving home, all of a sudden you blink and you're like, oh my God, I'm home. How did I get here?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it's all about that. And you're protected, for some strange reason, like you knew all the terms and you weren't conscious of it, but it's a shifting. And, at first I used to be like, wow, this is really kind of wild. I started doing it because my parents would send me to bed and they used to have these ceiling tiles with these little dots on them. And I used to stare at them because I was bored. Okay. And again, I'm a night person. So I'm sitting there, everybody's sleeping and I'm looking like, oh my God, I can't go to sleep. And I would tune out. And that's when the messages started coming, So I was actually training myself to sort of, have that focus without having it. And it's great when you're in a quiet space, but how do you do it when chaos hits? And that's the real test. It's easy to do it when everything is going well. When you're in the middle of that storm and you become the quiet in that storm, that is so powerful. And because I believe a lot of that negative energy, like, again, when you're upset, when you're angry, when you're worried, you feel drained, because that's not who we are. We're unconditional love. And we're in that peaceful, loving state. That's what feeds us. So it's about trying to create that equilibrium again. I teach people to rub their hands together, opening up their hands, the shoulders and the hands, giving the energy, and then giving it to your heart, closing your eyes and taking a deep breath in through your nose and releasing it. I do that 3 times. And it just automatically settles you back into your energy. It's almost like there's a force going around you into the earth, grounding you and also bringing in positive energy and sort of balancing you. And even going out in nature, I go out in nature. And again, I've been attracting things. My sister said, oh, do you think you have bears there? I was like, oh, we don't have bears here. Sure enough, I ran into a bear right down the block from me. I'm like, thank you, Sunday. It's like, because it was in my subconscious. And I'm thinking, oh, no, I said, I've never seen one before. And sure as enough, thank God I was protected, because a car came and it was like around midnight. I'm walking around my neighborhood taking pictures of the moon like an idiot, like we're all happy, like a big kid. And all of a sudden I see this shadow and I'm like, wow, that doesn't look like a deer shadow. And the bear ran right past me. And I could see the hair in the back of its striation. But if that car did not come, if I took 10 more steps, I would have been up to the bear. So I thanked God. So I went to one of my neighbors the next day. I said, do we have bears around here? She said, of course we do. She goes, they're going up and they're showing up on Ring cameras because they're eating the berries off of people's wreaths on their doors. So people are not putting any real live fruits on there or berries on their wreaths now, because the bears are going up there. And the Ring cameras are great because you get an up close view of a bear, there. But it's, again, what you think about, you bring about. The secret.
Okay, then tell me this one. Okay, and some people on here will remember this, because there was 2 summers ago, we moved into a new place. I love this. And one of the things I do is I thank my neighbors every day. I'm sure they think I'm crazy, because it was like that activity affected my whole neighborhood where I used to live. I lived there for years. And then when I went through my divorce, and right 6 months before the divorce, all this activity started happening. And like the neighbors, it was like, who are you? I don't even know you anymore, kind of thing. Right. So when we moved in here, and this is my first summer here, I'm sitting in the backyard, and when you were saying, when you're focusing on something else, that's when the messages come for me. If I'm a night hawk, right? It's quiet, everybody's in bed. I usually create. I love to make resin pieces or whatever. So this summer, I decided I never copy people, but I thought, oh, I want to make this. It was all the glass and crystals, and it was this little fire pit, if you will. And it actually went back to the time of Jesus. Speaking of Jesus, the woman said to use olive oil to make them light, and went into the whole history. It was really cool. Anyways, I got out in the backyard. It's about 2 a.m. and I'm sitting there playing on my phone, enjoying the beautiful light and the crystals, right? And all of a sudden I feel something licking my left foot, my baby toe, and I'm going, "Aw, isn't that nice?" Emmy, my dog's name. And I was going to say, "She's licking me," but I stopped at Emmy. Emmy's not out here. What the heck is licking my foot? I looked
Oh my.
down. Little baby skunk ran up and was licking my foot. I launched myself out of that chair because I thought, "Oh my God, look, is he going to spray me?" Right? Well, I think he was
Oh,
more scared than I was. He took off. Kicking out a week later, same thing. We're outside. It's nighttime. Dell pops back inside, and I'm still outside enjoying the moonlight, like as we do. We enjoy nature. Love what I think it's Sunday that said this: "Nature's got grounding you, nothing better." True. I'm sitting there. He goes inside. Who sees me from around the corner with that little baby skunk? And he makes a beeline for me. And I'm like plastered in the doorway like this. Dude, no, dude, you have to go. Dude. Okay. He never hurt
like,
me. Nothing like that. But you know what I took that as? And I wasn't really terrified. I love animals. I just didn't want him to spray me. And babies
yeah.
apparently don't have the power that their parents do with spray. I looked at that as a message, right? An animal message, that the fact that this little skunky dude was showing up twice in less than a week. And yeah, it was a really interesting message, and one that I needed to hear. But that's what I
And
was
they're
saying.
not
Pay
threatened by
attention to the
you.
signs and symbols. Mm-hmm.
And that's beautiful because they're not threatened by you. I get that all the time here with the deer. So then I'm like, okay, somebody's like, "Oh, you could get bear mace." I'm like, I'm not going to spray a bear with mace. So I looked up online. There's like a whistle you could do. So I have a whistle, and they said to use like bells. So I was at the dollar store and I got jingle bells. So I'm walking around, and by our complex, there's lights that go towards South Parking Lot, and then there's a big field. But all of the deer know not to come up, into the light. So they stand right
Mm-hmm.
at that line. So one day I'm walking around with my bells, and they're all stopped, and they're all at the edge, and they're looking at me like, "Look at this nut with these bells." So, and
Maybe
I'm
they were
laughing.
hoping to audition for Santa. I know they're not reindeer, but
I said, "There's Dancer and Prancer," and I'm laughing like an idiot. I'm like, they're looking at me like, "Look at this nut," but they know. And then I'm very fortunate. Like maybe 4 or 5 blocks, there's a beautiful area where you could walk through the woods. They have a wooden bridge with. So I'm there,
oh, it
and it was
sounds
super
beautiful.
cold. It was super cold, and I had my earmuffs on. And when I got to the the woods, I was going to take them off, and my guide said, "No, you want to keep them on because you want to feel with your other senses." So
Mm-hmm.
I walk all the way through, and it takes about 45 minutes to walk through. I get to the end, and then I feel something moving. So I look, and it's a white-tailed deer. So I'm looking, and I'm trying to get a picture of it, and I hear my guide say, "Something closer is looking at you." And I turn around, and there is a deer standing like 5 feet away from me. It was a different type of deer. So I'm like, "Okay, mommy, don't move. I want to take your picture." It was like this deer just stood there as I took its picture. Then I was
Did
like, "Oh
he
my
hurt
God."
you?
And he just stood there. And then I moved and I took another picture. Then my other cue is from nature. When I see cardinals, it always my sign for me that God is telling me that things are going right on track. And I saw the cardinal, and I was like, "Okay, this is great." And I'm trying to take a picture of it. It came right out and sat next to me. I took a picture. I'm like, "This was too easy." And then I go to another park, and I've never seen a northern bluebird, eastern bluebird, they call them. They are gorgeous. They're like blue, like a parrot blue. And I see something go past me. I was like, "What was that?" So I go to try to take out my camera, and again, comes right next to me, and I took a picture. And I'm like, "This is awesome." But it's almost like they feel our energy. And when you're in that peaceful Zen state, it's sort of like it's what they're in all the time. So they feel it, and they feel the energy. And just going through, through the woods, It
I
also,
think
if I'm
we
having
can
a bad day,
communicate with animals. Like my
absolutely.
kids, I never ever, I'm going to try moving closer, you guys. This is driving me crazy. I have a bad back in case you don't know me. So you are going to see me move around. And I apologize. It's just what I got to do to get comfortable.
Okay.
But I mean, my Wi-Fi extender, I could practically reach out and touch it. So it should not be
Same
doing
for
this.
me.
It's at full strength, you
Be
guys. So I
free book.
apologize for the breaks. But I was
Be
going to
free
say,
book.
oh, sorry.
It says, be free Brooks, say Cardinal, same for me. Good. We're on the same
Yeah,
track.
because I was going to say with my boys, I never crammed this down their throats. Like, I mean, I've always, even when I told my roommate that I've known since I was 16 that I used to live with before I got married in my early 20s, she was not shocked at all. She goes, Laura, every time we lived together, when we lived together for years, you would know stuff and I wouldn't know how you'd know it, but you would, right? So I always had it. So, and I was always very open-minded. And my eldest, he's going to be 28. When he was about 2.5 or 3, he started telling me what our animals were thinking. And to
Oh,
this
wow.
day, he can communicate with animals. So when you told that deer, like mentally, you asked it and you were full of love, you were open, you were calm, Michael, I would
Yep.
not doubt for 1 second that that deer heard you. And you said the cardinal also posed for the picture.
Yep. And I laughed
So,
because even my friend
mhm,
said, it says it's almost like the deer posed for you. And I said, I think it did. Then, feeling energy. I'm walking and across there's a field and a park and there's a pool.
mhm.
So I'm coming around and it's foggy out, which I love fog. I'm like a big kid. I'm running out there going, oh my God, I'm in London and I'm running around like an idiot. And
So you're
I'm
not
running
looking
around
for
there.
the werewolves in London or anything.
Exactly. So I'm all happy. I'm like a big kid. I'm running around out there. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden I come around and I could feel this energy. And me and this deer are face to face. I didn't realize how tall white-tailed deer are. Like we were like eye to eye. And I said,
Mhm.
okay, mommy, only one of us is going to cross here. So we got to make a decision. And she just went
Yeah.
boink, 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 and she left. And then I go up a little bit further and I'm taking pictures. And it reminded me of your skunk story. I
Yeah.
feel like another energy, and there's a little fox just eating. And then the thing looked at me like,
Aw.
what are you doing here? It was so beautiful. And, so I love living where I live right now. And, I love South Florida. That's where I was living for a while. But
Mhm.
I think this is like the perfect space for me right now. And I'm making, that connection with the earth again. Like even growing up on Long Island, I used to go through the woods and stuff like that. And we had a creek and all that, which I loved. And it reminds me of doing that, but it's so healing. It's so like if I'm having a bad day or if I'm, I just need to get out in the fresh air and you just walk and you come back in the best mood. And if I could, I would walk barefoot, but it's too cold right now. In Florida, I walk barefoot a lot, especially going to the
Okay,
beach
did you
or
see
even
that documentary that was out a few years ago called Earthing? And they're going on and on about how incredible it was. Take your socks and shoes off and get out in nature. It's like, dudes, this has been around for thousands of years. I mean,
exactly.
people were healing diseases and all kinds of stuff because I forget who it was. I think it might have been hang on, I'm going back here. Be Free Books, and if it wasn't, I apologize. But they were talking about there's basically nothing more grounding and healing than nature. And I have to agree because we were talking a little bit that's part of the thing about when we're dealing with these gifts, like with anxiety, picking up people's other energy or pain, because I can pick up people's pain going into a room. So I've had
Yeah.
to stop, breathe, and say, is this mine? First answer I get, usually no. Then return to sender. And like I say, if you can find it in your heart to attach love or positive energy to it, right? Then if the person, their higher self says, no, not for me, I've yet to meet someone that has, but say they didn't want it, I believe it just kind of goes into the ethers and whoever needs it, they receive. Because even with Reiki, for example, I'll tell a story really quick, Michael, because I do crystal Reiki. I know, Michael, you do the ones with many more, or Reiki. You can talk if, not that I'm giving you permission, but about your Reiki. But my point is, my eldest son and I, the one that can communicate, both the boys can communicate with animals, but my eldest and I were at the doctor's office, and there was this woman just freaking out and screaming, like just in a rage at the receptionist. And he's such a sweet man. He did not deserve that. But I always say it's not my job to judge. So I put my hand out very discreetly and I kept tracing the Reiki symbol for healing and for grounding and for positive energy. So my son texts me, he goes, "Are you sending those?" He knew what the symbols were. And I said, yeah. So he started to do it. And it wasn't like I was thinking, for people listening, that this is what you need. I'm sending it to you. I offered it, that energy. And because Michael and I had this conversation off air, that when we practice Reiki, it's not me. I always say I'm just the mailman or the delivery person. Michael had a better term. I'll finish the story quickly, Michael. Like I said, I can literally hear Michael. He's got lots to add and much wisdom. But the point is that if her higher self didn't want it or need it, again, that energy would just sort of go into the atmosphere and whomever needs it. Energy can only be transferred one place to another, right? It can't be created nor destroyed. Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
Absolutely. And Carrie, I agree. Sometimes our loved one comes in signs of cardinals and other things, butterflies. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll come in dragonflies and things like that too. So I totally agree with that. Yeah, with Reiki, whenever I would do Reiki, I started off and what I mentally say, if you're here to heal, I'm here to help. Do you accept? And that's how I start my sessions. And the thing is, like you said, you're there to offer it. Reiki Reiki balances. So what happens is, like I say, like I'm like the hose and water's coming through me. I'm the conduit.
That was it. I couldn't remember what you said. It was so awesome.
Yeah. And it comes through you and it goes. And then when it goes to the person, like I may be at your head and your shoulder's hurting you, it will go to your shoulder. It has an innate energy and an innate knowing of where that imbalance is. So we don't have to do nothing. And the great thing about being a Reiki practitioner is we fill ourselves up first with the Reiki, and then we send it out. And I told you a story that when I was working with Jesus and he was showing me those lights, I said, how come, that, if I'm doing so good and I'm trying to be a good person, why do people still do bad things to me, And then we were at a retreat with our spiritual group, and we were in Bear Mountain. It was upstate New York, and I was up early. And the mountain, they had this like fog with this light, and I saw Jesus coming down the mountain, and he put his hands up like this, and he said for me to put my hands down like this. I don't know if you can see, but my hands are going to be like this, so in a receiving. So what happens is, as he's doing that, he shined this light on me, and he says, tell me when you can't hold anymore. And I felt like it was filling up. And he said, okay. He said, straighten your arms. And when I straightened my arms, the energy came off of my arms. And he says, sometimes you have to reflect what people are doing so they see what they're doing. And I was like, wow. So Reiki energy, and that energy was the most similar thing to the energy that I experienced with Jesus. I haven't found anything more similar, and I'm still searching, but that is the closest thing for me because it is universal life force energy. So what happens is when I would go to Reiki circles and, people sit and then you do Reiki on them. So we would be and this happened a lot. I would go to a Reiki circle and people are like, oh no, I want to sit by him. And they're like, but why? All the Reiki is the same. Like, no, his comes out of his arms too. So they would feel it because the Reiki would come out of my arms also. And it was like wild. And then I'm thinking, okay, Mike, because, you think to yourself, like, is it really? And then for people, and not just in one place, in other places. So people pick up that energy, and it's all about filling yourself up with the energy and then giving it out. And it's been amazing. I love it. I Reiki myself every day in the shower. I Reiki my car. I Reiki people. If they're stuck on the side of the road, I send them Reiki. Animals.
Well, that's what I said, right? You can send it. And when I'm talking about our higher self, when you get into a bit of, some people want to call it your subconscious, whatever you want to call it, right? Most of us were taught in school that what we think with every day, right? That we learn our our math and spelling and what have you, that's the executive, if you will, right? It's not. This is just a receiving computer, but our subconscious, higher self, whatever it is always on. It knows every life we've lived. It knows pretty well everything that's going to be happening now. And it knows into the future, I truly believe, right? So
absolutely.
that's what I was talking about, higher self. Go ahead, Michael.
Yes, no, and I totally, and it's just like when you meet somebody, there's certain people that you
I
meet
do
that you
too,
feel like you've
Alyssa.
known them, and you get that feeling, or you've gone somewhere and you're like, I've been here before. This feels too familiar.
Deja
I
vu.
would say, and it was funny because, and everybody thinks heaven, a lot of times people think heaven is up. I
Mhm.
I actually
Hi,
experienced
Allie.
it. I have experienced certain things where I think it's happening right next to us. And for
Mhm.
instance, like um it was wild. I had a friend, his house was like a museum. Everything was perfect. And there was this spot on the wall. And that spot on the wall, I would feel this pull from my heart. And it was on the second floor. So what happens is he's like, what's wrong? Why do you always keep looking there? So I don't know. I keep getting pulled there from my heart. And he's like, and he would go and he would touch the wall. He goes, there's nothing here. And my
Mhm.
guides would tell me, one day you'll know what it means. And what happens is, as
Don't
years
you
go,
hate when they do that? Like, why can't you tell
well,
me
can
now?
you just like fast forward? And I need an easy button,
Yeah.
or fast
Yeah.
forward button. Yeah. So
Mhm.
I'm there, and so I mean, this is years later. He unfortunately got sick and he passed. So what happens is, when he passed, I'll never forget. I was dreaming. I was actually in Sedona, Arizona, and it was 1995 when they had the Oklahoma bombing. I was there. So what
Okay, I
happens is,
remember that.
It was Easter week, and I'm there, and you know, and all this weird stuff was happening. They had an earthquake in the Grand Canyon. It was snowing in April, and all this stuff. So we're there, and I had this dream, and in the dream, I was disoriented at first because I helped him cross by being there for him,
Mhm.
as he went through his journey. So I just wanted to make sure that he was okay. And they said, well,
Yeah.
for for all that you did, we're going to show you, what.
Mhm.
So what happens is I'm in I'm in his house, not realizing I'm in his house, in his bedroom, the one that I kept,
Yeah,
that
to
I
the
kept
spot on the wall.
spot on the wall. So I was disoriented at first. So he said, I want to thank you. I can't repay you for everything that you've done. And I said, well, you don't have to repay me. He says, I just want you to know that I'm here, my family's here, and that to tell my family that I'm okay. So
Right.
with this, I wake up and now I'm hiking through the woods, like in real life in Sedona. I'm all excited. That was where I wanted to go. So I'm there, and my guide comes to me, the Jovi one. He goes, how'd you like your dream? So I said, oh, it was great. He says, he says, I bet you think logically that it gave you closure, right? So I'm like, yeah, I thought that was what it was about. He said, logically, he goes, if it was logical, you would have entered through the door. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He says to me, you didn't enter through the door. You entered through that spot on the wall. I entered from the second floor through that spot on the wall because that's why I was
Wow.
disoriented in the beginning. So I'm like, oh my God. The only other time something similar like that happened, I was in Italy. I went with a friend who lived in Italy. So he's very Catholic and he's very, unsure of my gifts. He don't know what it is, but he can't explain it. So he's kind of like, I don't want to comment. So we're going to all these different churches and stuff. And again, me being absorbed into the artwork, we're in this one church and I'm there. And then I was so, into this one piece of art that I hear him off in the distance calling me. And I'm like,
Oh
what the
my
hell is he
goodness.
doing? I was like, what the heck is he doing all the way over there? He was like, I'm over here. I go walking. And as I'm walking, I feel from in here being pulled up. I felt like I was going to pass out and be pulled up through the
Oh, you
ceiling.
told me about this. I
Yes.
remember.
So then all of a sudden, he looks at me. He's like, what's wrong? I said, the weirdest thing happened. He goes, you don't look good. I said, I felt like I was being pulled to the ceiling. And he goes, you scare me. And I said, what? He goes, I hate to tell you this, but I kind of try to trick you. He said, the name of this church in Italian means pull your soul closer to God. And it was constructed so that it would pull you to heaven. And he said,
Oh,
the
wow.
spot that I made you cross, as soon as you hit that spot, that's when you felt pain. So he goes, I don't know what you have, but you have something. So, but it was also like, and I didn't even know about that. But again, the spirit realm is always there. There's energy around us, and it's about discerning it and figuring it out and sort of seeing those clues. I wish they would be like, Aunt Sophie's here and she's telling you this. Normally
That was
like
the biggest shock for me with mediumship, and I'm still learning.
yes,
And Because I do speak 3 languages. I speak French, much better. I don't drink much, but if I have a couple of glasses of wine, much better. And Spanish, I get mixed up very closely with French because a little bit of Italian I can read and write, a little bit of Portuguese, because they all come from the same base language, right?
Yes.
Latin roots. So with mediumship, like I'm so clairaudient, which for people just hearing that, maybe not knowing what that is, you hear. And no, I don't hear voices. Kind of like how Michael explained it for me with my gift. It's my voice, but I know it's not me because I don't talk that way. Within my head, we all talk to ourselves, and it's
Yes.
always meant in love and for your highest good. You know the difference. Whereas I know some people who hear different voices. So everybody's unique and different. So like, I forget where I was going with that point because I keep getting drawn to this comment, and we're going to
You're
back up
talking
for a
about
second.
mediumship and how like you can't have Aunt Sophie and you can't have her your way.
Oh, right. I'll
Yes.
add that too. Sorry,
Yes.
guys, that happens. My mind goes a mile a minute here.
I got you.
Is that I thank you, Michael. Is that when I started doing mediumship, it was like going to a different country. And then sometimes I always see if their energy is very strong, then yeah, I can usually see them, I can hear them. But a lot of times they will still, because it's telepathy, right? How they're communicating. So a lot of times they'll still use symbols. Some use colors, some use a smell, some use touch, some use all different, they use all your senses. And sometimes they can use all 5 in a conversation. And then it's up to us as the interpreter to interpret it. And it's not always the way they possibly intended it sometimes, right? There's room for human error.
Absolutely. And for instance, they also use your frame of reference. And this is what happened. A good friend of mine, we went through Reiki together, and we had 2 Reiki masters in this one thing where the one woman was a nurse. So what happens is we actually got our certificates. We were doing Reiki for a while, and then we decided to take an art class together. It was like an adult education. It was like pottery. I think it was pottery. So we're there, and we normally would sit together, but we sort of got separated that day. And she was talking to this woman, and I was talking to these other people, and we just got separated. So when I looked at the woman, I saw one of the Reiki masters. Her name is Nancy, who was a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I'm going, oh, that woman must be a nurse. So later on, we're finishing up, we're cleaning up. So I said, oh, she goes, I had a really nice time. I said, I met the woman. I said, oh, you mean the nurse? So she's like, yeah. Then she's like, wait a minute, how do you know she's a nurse? And I tried to explain to her. She goes, oh, I forgot who I'm speaking to. So I started laughing, and the thing was, they showed me a picture of her. And that to me means, oh, she's a nurse. And it's almost like you have to develop that communication with them. I had
or a dictionary. It's almost like a dictionary. Like if you say it to your guides, and they will hear you, that every time I see brown sugar, it means, I don't know, whatever. Every time I see a ladybug, I'm just using anything I'm pulling out of the air. But if you let them know that that's what it means for you, I find it works best if you're in more of a meditative state. But the thing is, they want to help you succeed. They're here, right? They're here to help you. Like I keep saying, we're not here by accident. This is driving me crazy. I got to go back to this, and we got to read this comment. It's back when we were talking about energy and stuff. Of course, we've talked about that mostly, but it was Elizabeth Gates. She said Reiki. That's why she said, I send it whenever I see an ambulance go by. Also, I wanted to pick up on that for a minute because I had never thought about this. These aren't the things we learn in school or growing up usually. So you could send Reiki, but say you don't know how to do Reiki. And this always resonated with me. I taught this to both my children, is whenever I hear an ambulance or a police car or whatever it is, now, whether you believe in a prayer or you just want to put it out into the universe, whatever your belief system is, I always ask for angels to be by their side, to relieve their pain, to relieve any fear. And God forbid that they're leaving this realm, they're going back home, as I call it, that it's a peaceful, easy transition. But either way, that they're protected, they're loved, and they're guided, basically. And I love what she added there. I didn't know if you wanted to add something to that, Michael, but because that's usually when we're scared and whatever, right? If an ambulance is coming, we're going to be afraid or something's going down.
Absolutely. And, it's all love. It goes back to love, unconditional love. And the thing is, even if you don't know Reiki, again, having those good intentions and and that positive energy. It's just like when, like you said earlier, you could go into a room and you could feel if there was an argument there before, because that negative energy is heavy and it's sitting there. But the thing is that, you know, when you send that love and light, it goes to where it needs to go. And there's no wrong or right way. When you have love in your heart, you know, it goes to exactly where it is. I've also worked with the Akashic Records, and it's funny because
I
you
do
ask
too.
questions, and you know, I remember you saying that. And for me, it was weird. One of my master guides, I didn't realize, was getting me into the Akashic Records without doing the whole ritual prayer and all this stuff. And
Okay, but that goes back. I got to cut you off for just 1 sec. Okay, that because I realized after I took these courses too, and I appreciate that I took them, that I've been going into the records my whole life. So because
isn't
we've
that
been
wild?
okay, so we've been taught, right, that you have to say the special prayer and you have to get into your heart space, you have to do all this stuff. But then it goes back to what I think Spirit gave me, and I had to throw it in here. What we
Yes,
perceive becomes what we believe, and it becomes our reality. So if we believe that
absolutely.
that's what we need to do, it becomes our reality. Whereas I didn't mean to cut you off. Please continue
No, but
your
that's
story.
it's an
But I
important
think
thing.
that's important for people to understand that, yes, we
Absolutely.
all need to learn a way to do something if it doesn't come naturally. But take what resonates with you and leave the rest. It's not, I don't think it's being disrespectful, but what
And
we
there's no right or
believe
wrong way.
becomes our reality. Go ahead, Michael.
There's
Sorry.
no right or wrong way. And
Yes.
that's exactly my point too, is, and some people need that structure. And you may need that structure in the beginning, but then you may develop your own ways and trust that because you're being intuitively guided. So, you know, we're always to ask good questions. And that's where, you know, that's where a lot of the work that I do, even with my life coaching, is about asking questions. So I would ask, and every time I would ask this, I would get the same answer. What do I need to know in moving forward? And they would say, you are loved beyond measure. And when they would say that, you could feel this wave of love that would make you want to cry. And it would
So
sort of be like,
beautiful.
and it was just so empowering. And then, and basically, that's all we really do need to know. And then everything else is icing. You know, we are loved beyond measure. And, you know, and that feeling and that knowing it and that deep sense of, wow, you know, I feel it. That opens you up to all the possibilities. When the angels would come to me, they would talk about hope a lot. They would talk about the oneness, and they would talk about hope. So I said, why do you keep talking about hope? And they said, we call you the bringer of hope. And without hope, there'd be no reason to move forward. And I was like,
It's true.
wow. So even when I did Reiki, they would call them the bringers of light and the bringer of hope. They went our group, and they would give me messages for the group, and it was really kind of powerful. And you know, it was just so beautiful because then I'm thinking, you know, here I am, an ordinary guy from Brooklyn, and I'm like, I'm the bringer of hope because I kept saying, why do they keep talking about hope? That's what we call you. And then I'll never forget, they said, they said, we have molded you in a way that you could walk through many different types of people and go unnoticed. And then I said, wow, do you know, I could be hanging out with my Jewish friends and they keep saying, oh my God, I forgot you're not Jewish. Or my Black friends, they're like, I kept forgetting, you know, they don't see a difference because we're all on a soul level. And living in New York, I was very fortunate. I got to experience many different diverse nationalities and cultures. And it was just beautiful because it really enriched who I am and who my family is. And working in research, I told you this story. We would get different research fellows from around the world. So one day I'm looking in the mirror and I kept seeing this Asian man. I'm thinking, why do I keep seeing an Asian man looking back at me? And I'm thinking, this is kind of weird, but it was like a strong connection. And I was like, this is bizarre. A couple of months later, one of the doctors that I was working with, he goes, oh, we're getting a new fellow coming in. Sure enough, it was the Asian man, the one that I would see in the mirror. And I was like, and I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and he wrote English really well, but he couldn't speak it well. So what happened was he was asking for things and nobody knew what he wanted. So I asked, you know, with my heart, what does he need? And I would bring it to him. So one day he says to me, he goes, I told my wife, Michael knows Chinese. So I said, he goes, how do you know Chinese? So I'm like, I don't. He goes, but how? He goes, I know I was asking in Chinese for the thing, and everybody would look at me, I was crazy, and you brought me what I needed. How did you know? I said, I asked for what was in your heart and for me to bring it to you. So then he said to me, I knew you before I knew you. And I said, what do you mean? Because I used to see you in the mirror. He saw me too before he came. It was the wildest thing. And then my one guide is very jovial. And when my guide would be all charged up and he would be laughing, he would get in trouble for something, he would be laughing. And the big doctor would be like, the doctor in charge, I can't even get mad at him. He's laughing at me. And I would start laughing. And then it was around Christmas. And he says to me, we don't give Christmas presents. He goes, but I want to give you something. And he gave me a scroll with words in Chinese on it. So I said, no, I'm going to tell you what my guides are telling you. It says, live a simple life and you'll have a happy life. He goes, that's exactly what it says. How do you know that? But again, just listening. I was in shock too, because it just came to me. And the other thing
so what you just said there, right? And people may be hearing this going, and I love what Dave Petrella said, take the best, leave the rest. That's right. And I want to answer B. Free's book and question just a minute, but like what you were interpreting this with though, right? Like you said, bring me what's in their heart. You're coming from a pure space and of love. But as human beings, because we've never been raised with things like most of us anyways, with meditation and with trusting that inner guidance that your body will speak to you if you could clear your mind. Pain is when our body is screaming at us. But I mean, our body will speak to us, especially with a lot of the healing energy stuff that I do. And it will. And, if they could just hear, right? And the same thing though with the message where I'm going with this gentleman, you were coming from a place of love. And I also think with telepathy that it's almost like a different kind of communication. I know it is, but what I'm trying to say is there are no language barriers. There are no different languages or anything. And it's knowing and learning to trust what we receive, because I will bet that many of you, and there's a few people I've seen here that have been working on their spiritual gifts in the chat, that as you learn to trust yourself, you're going to realize looking back that you had the answer so many times, but because of logic or disbelief or talking yourself out of it by saying it was my imagination, or sometimes you'll hear that's the ego part. But the point is, I believe as human beings, we're very, very gifted. What's your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, like, even scientifically, they only know what part of our brain does. They don't even know what everything does. And God just doesn't put that in for filler. There's reasons for it. We just don't know about it. And the thing is, I believe when we pray, we ask God for things. When we meditate, we listen. And why would we ever ask for anything if we did not take time to listen? And I believe that when we drop down into our heart space, it connects us to all that is. It connects us to our own inner wisdom that connects us to everything.
Yes.
And in the life coaching that I do, that's what I teach people to do, to drop down into their heart space and ask and trust. And again, like you said earlier, you don't have to be perfect. Nothing is perfect, because perfect is not real. And guess what? If you're perfect, there's only one way from there, and that's down. And I said, I don't want to go down. I want to keep going up,
Well, plus you don't learn. When things are
Exactly.
perfect or things are status quo or whatever, we don't learn. And we're here to learn. I want to
Absolutely.
answer Be Free Book's question if I can here, Michael, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Besides protecting yourself with the white light, how do you avoid a negative entity coming forth with a message? Now, there's something that really hit me over the head. Maybe Spirit knew this question was going to come up. And it was a couple weeks ago. And it was researching a little bit for somebody going through a paranormal experience. And then I realized that sometimes, and they were talking more about what we would call a trickster spirit, that sometimes they bring a message too. And sometimes they're bringing forth what you might call back in the shadow, something we don't want to deal with, or we've tucked it away because we don't want to deal with it. And again, there's much more to it. We don't have enough time to get into the depth of it. Michael and I could probably do a whole show about this, but my point is that sometimes there is a message with what's showing up. For example, the stuff we went through in our own home, there was 4 main spirits there, but looking back, there were some messages in there for us. Mainly, it was up to us to recognize what this was, and that we had to deal with this ourselves and get rid of it Everybody I was looking for to help us, to give us answers, it never seemed to work out. It was because it was meant for us with the messages that were within to decode it and understand. And a lot of it was in the shadow that we didn't want to deal with. So that's what I was going to answer with that. Is there something you want to add besides a white light
Yeah.
or what? Go ahead.
I use sage. I use different types of incense and smudge. The other thing is a lot of times too is we're vulnerable when we're sleeping. So I get a bowl of water and I have one
Okay, because
here.
she said, how do you avoid a negative entity coming forth with message? Like with a message, that's the way I took
You
it.
tell them that you only come from love and light, and tell them that, you know, anything that is not of love and light is not accepted here. And you stand firm in that. You set those boundaries. Remember, you're the physical realm. Things like this, and this is another thing where I have it's a water glass. And what
Mhm.
happens is just like you clean your body with water, mind and spirit. And it's just not for negative energy, but it's if you're having a bad day or whatever. Like, you know, I was rushing around, so I have that there, so it absorbs any energy that's not conducive to having clear connection or pure connection. So things like that.
I think
So
this is helpful though, Michael, because people do need to hear this.
yeah,
Sage, you said, and I didn't mean to stop you because I just wanted to make sure I interpreted that properly.
yeah,
Because the one
yeah.
thing
White
I like,
sage.
I
Yeah,
want to
white
ask
sage.
you a question, and I didn't ask you this when we were off air on Friday, but I have learned to, besides everybody in my house hates sage, and I'm actually allergic to the herb itself, like to eat it. But my
Yes.
point is, I use Palo Santo
Palo
with my.
Santo, that's another one of my favorites, or
Well, I
frankincense. I use.
like it though, because I believe that it removes the negative, but it keeps the positive intact. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think
I
about that?
totally agree. That's one of my other
Okay.
favorite ones I use is Palo Santo. Again, it comes from the holy tree. And it's
Mhm.
just soothing. For me, it's soothing. It
I
reminds
love
me, it
it.
gives me the same feeling of when I'm around frankincense being
I was
raised
seeing
high.
if I had it here. I don't have it here. I think I've got it on the dresser
Also
across the.
sandalwood. Sandalwood is another
Yes.
favorite. Sweet
Mhm.
grass I use a lot, also from the Native American type of energy. It's just what makes you feel comfortable. Some people like lavender. Prairie sage, this
Mhm.
prairie sage is my favorite. That's awesome too. And it's what you connect with. Okay. Again, the sage, what the way I look at it is this the white sage actually sort of neutralizes the energy, and then you put something else in there like either the frankincense, like I'll use the white sage and Palo Santo or frankincense or sandalwood. And I'll just put it, it's like another layer. So the sage I look at is it's sort of neutralizing the area, and then you put positive energy in there. And it could even be putting positive light in there also. It doesn't have to be another
Well, you can
another
bless your water, and that's not coming from
absolutely.
a religious thing, right? Because Dr. Emoto, you can look up his research with water from Japan,
Yeah,
water that was, low vibrational words, hate,
yeah,
things like that were said to water versus love. I love you and positive. And he looked at it underneath the microscope. I know you knew this, Michael, but for people that may not, and that works. So no, you don't have to get down on your hands and knees and pray, but there's a reason why, looking back now, why people pray over their food, right? And you don't have to pray, just say something positive and full of love and whatever, right?
yeah. And there's also, there's other things like, I try to give back. I also belong to the National Spiritualistic Church, the Temple of Metaphysical Science. You could find me there on Sundays. And actually, it's free. I'm going to give you the website. It's www.tmsil.org. That's
Okay.
tmsil.org. That is that is they have a service, they have mediumship, and it's free. And it's a national spiritualistic church. I'm there most Sundays from 10 to 10:30 to 12. And then I also do Reiki, and that's also online. It's on Zoom, and that's the Divine Love Institute. So I want to make sure that I give them a plug too because they provide such a good service for everyone, and
Well,
it's
we'll
free.
add their addresses, Michael, because on the end of the banner, plus we'll make sure
Yeah,
to I'll mention them right. We're almost out of time, anyways.
I
But my
know this
point
went
is,
so quick.
I told you that was gonna happen. I said, guys, I'm gonna have to have Michael back because there's so many things him and I didn't even touch on. But I'll add those to the banner at the bottom because I put where to get a hold of you. Well,
Oh,
we've got,
perfect.
let's see, we got about 3-4 minutes left. Wait,
Yeah.
no, yeah, probably about 4 or 5 minutes left.
Yes.
And then we'll be wrapping things up already.
I want to thank you, Lorilei, for inviting me. And this is a wonderful platform. And thank you for holding this
Thank
space.
you.
It's so important for you and people like you to have this because, where do we go? We're having this. We're sitting in our homes, especially during COVID. Everyone felt isolated, and guess what? You may be living in a haunted house and now you're there full time, so it's like, but just to have this, to have your other shows, and I've been looking through them. They're wonderful and they're
Well,
wealths of
thank you.
knowledge. We don't have to do this on our own. And I'm so grateful for like-minded people. So I feel grateful and blessed to be
Well,
here. So
I'm
thank
great. Michael and I connected, and we probably have known each other for thousands of years, I'm sure. When you meet people like that and you just like connect right away. Thank you, Be Free Books. They've typed it in the chat.
Yes.
Elizabeth, I realized when I saw your name, I have to give her a quick shout out. I was supposed to message her this weekend and I don't even know where the weekend went. Well, you know what? I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Those of you that know me, I'm doing, I can't even talk tonight. My brain's not even working. I'm doing resin work in a spiritual line. I have like over 200 molds, but I also make like t-shirts, and that's when I do my meditation, when I'm creating. Well, Michael knows this because I told him when I was going out, but I got my t-shirt press because I'm getting into it's called sublimation and stuff. So that's where I was setting it up and getting all that stuff, but I haven't forgotten. I wanted to let you guys know. So let's read a few more messages here and then I'll give you a chance, Michael, because we have lots to talk about, Michael and I. Gosh, you wouldn't, well, actually they probably would want to be a fly on the wall when we're talking off air.
We go nonstop.
Yeah. Okay. Elizabeth Gates says, thank you. Both loved it. Love and light to everyone. And right back at you, Zach. And I'm so glad to see you, Zach. I know you're super busy, so I'm so glad you're able to pop by because he's been a big supporter. He's filled in when I've had a guest because I've been on this network in particular for almost 4 years. He's filled in. So he says, great show today. Thank you, Michael, for joining us today. Have a good night, everybody. Michelle, I didn't call you out. She's over in Australia. She said, hang on, I went too far. She said, blessed we are, and be free. Thank you so much. Great podcast. God bless. Thank you. I should remind you too, as I'm reading these, please share the show with anybody you know. There's replays always wherever talk radio or podcasts are carried. The video is on Roku. And I said at the beginning of the show, I should say it at the end. If you're on Roku, sign into your account. You're going to go to the channel store, look up UFO space P as in Peter, like you're going to type paranormal. There'll be a few that'll come up, but ours will come up under UFO paranormal. And I believe it's like a / United Public because we go by both those names because we have so many different shows here on the network. There's something for everybody. Plus we have syndicated shows. There's something playing 24 hours a day here.
You just went mute. You went mute.
Did I am? Oh,
yeah.
You
now
know
you're
what?
Back. Now you're back.
I swear to God, the reason why I'm looking all over you guys, I've had my kid in here looking for his cat. My computer's, it's crazy here tonight. Welcome to the madhouse. Lorraine Hatcher, she's from Australia. She said fascinating chat. Let's see. And everybody's sending all kinds of rainbows and whatever. So Michael, where can they find you? Let's give them all the addresses that you were starting to mention.
Okay. Well, we have Felicity, A Daily Dose of Happy on Facebook. That's my page. Or you can reach out to me as Michael DiBlasi, just like it's spelled here. And I will friend you and I will put you with my page. The other thing is the Temple of Metaphysical Science on Sundays. Again, thank you for putting that in the chat. That's at 10:30. That's also free. It's a Zoom call. Also, Divine Love Institute. That's on Saturdays at 10 a.m., 10 to 11. And it's a meditation and everyone shares at the end. If you would like to share, Reiki is given and comes through the screen just like this. And it's beautiful. And it's a nice community. They're good-hearted people and they're like family. I mean, they are family to me. So I'm really blessed and I'm giving back. I'm also receiving. And it's just nice to be around like-minded people.
Well, we got plenty of people here. Yeah, we got plenty of people here like that. Carrie
Yes.
says, thank you. Great show. Love to you both. Thank you. Right
Thank
back at
you.
you. Shannon says, awesome show. Thank you. We're going to
Thank
have
you.
Michael back, you guys, because we barely scratched the surface, like barely. And I told him before he came on, I said, Michael, I'm going to end up having you back quite a few times. I already know, because I
I
love to
love it.
talk. Michael likes to talk, but he's got so much wisdom. You should see it.
Thank
We
you.
didn't get into some of the channeled messages he said he's channeled. Like, I'm telling you, guys are going to love him. I know I'm going to have him back on. If you say
Thank
yes, I know you're going to say yes, right?
Absolutely.
No
Absolutely.
pressure.
Nope.
So if you,
I'm
oh, go ahead,
here.
Mike. What I do want to add, if you ever want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/Angel Rock. Again, I've got two groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and then the Angel Rocker Tribe for many of the things we talked about this evening. You guys, I forgot to mention, how could I forget to mention? I will be back in our new time, permanent time, with my second show here on United Public Radio Network, also known as UFO Paranormal Radio Network, Thursdays, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with my amazing co-host, David Hansel. He's a spiritual medium, has had a near-death experience, and it's called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed. And we talk about many of the topics actually that Michael and I talked about tonight. And we have the predictable reading, where somewhere during that 2-hour period, if something lights up for us, or you've said something, or maybe you've got a question, we will give you a reading from Spirit, one question reading. So be sure to tune in for that. Now, I wanted to remember, I wrote this down so I had the right name down, because she's got a little bit of a longer name. On the Angel Rock, same time, same space next week. And this is somebody I've been trying to have on for a long time. Barbara Causey Bartolome. I hope I said that properly. Please forgive me, Barbara. Now, she is the director and founder of the International Near-Death Society, basically the organization, the global organization for near-death. As you guys know, if you follow the show, I have studied near-death experiences for 40 years, professionally and personally. Also believe I have had an experience as a toddler. So that is going to be a fascinating guest. So you make sure you want to tune in. Anyways, Michael, thank you for being here.
I just
Love
want
you
to add
so much.
one quick thing. Mentor Mike 2021 at yahoo.com. If you're interested in developing and spiritual coaching, I'll be more than happy to help.
I'm glad, because I was going to say, Michael, yeah, how can they get a hold of you if maybe they want to book a reading or something? So is that the way to do it?
Yeah, Mentor Mike 2021 at yahoo.com. That would be the easiest way. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. And I will definitely be back.
Awesome. And thank you for your group you brought over here. A great group of people. All of you. Thank you for your interaction and comments. And we love when you do that. You know, I love involving you with that. So thank you. So I send you all so much love and light. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you might be. And we'll see you same time, same space, actually on Thursday, and then Monday again next week. See you soon.